Hello everybody and welcome to yet another weekly episode of the Figure Fourcast. As ever, my name is Sam Gardner and I am joined again by Damien Cross, none other. I don't have any other co-hosts, so I don't know why I said that, but he's here anyway. How are you, Damien?
Pretty good this week. Minor snafu with the last episode that we got fixed, but hopefully no more audio issues. But we're still quite new to this, so there's going to be those kind of teething problems. But I've had a good week. Work has been good, and wrestling has been interesting, and that's about all we can hope for at the minute with WWE.
Yeah, exactly. And in other news, in real world news, we've both been invited for our vaccines. Cray.
Yeah.
That's exciting, man.
Possibly at the time you're listening to this, I don't know when we'll be uploading, but we'll both have had our vaccine by the time this is live, so...
Yeah, we'll both have our microchips in, so you'll be able to track us online via GPS. Yeah. It's a conspiracy, man.
We'll be buying some new
Sheeple.
Microsoft
You need to
computers
listen,
next
you
week
sheeple.
and getting our Xbox Series X's because Bill Gates wants us to.
Just to clear any sort of confusion, we are joking and we're not conspiracy theory people, so I don't want to attract the wrong crowd and I don't want people to think we believe that the vaccines work. Sorted. Okay, good. Right,
this is far too heavy of a start. Let's move on and get into the rest.
I was about to say let's get into something slightly less controversial even, but I don't know if Raw is. Although I think there's sort of a unified view about Raw that it is absolute dog poo, to be kind to it. So maybe it is less controversial. Last week, Damien sort of took the reins of the show and wanted to fix Raw in inverted commas, or sort of do a few tweaks to make it better. What we think would make it better. This week we're going to do something similar along those lines, but I've given it a go. I'm not doing it in the exact same format as Damien. We're going to have a little bit of a discussion about the segments, just about what we thought about them. I imagine most of it is going to be fairly negative. That's sort of a wild theory that I've got, but look, we'll get into it anyway and see where we go. And we're going to talk a little bit about the WWE draft, which has been announced for a couple of weeks after SummerSlam. So we're going to pick 5 WWE wrestlers off of Raw and SmackDown that we think should make the switch to either improve the shows or improve their own careers. So we'll get to that. But I say, let's get into the show and talk about Monday Night Raw.
Yeah.
So, Raw started this week. I sort of got excited because it looked like Raw was starting with an actual match. And there was people in the ring ready for this tag team battle royal, which I was quite excited about because the tag team division was getting sort of a highlight on Raw, and that's something we don't see. And then just as I was getting excited, out come AJ Styles and Omos for a sort of 15-minute, 20-minute dialogue, and my heart sunk. I was just like, oh, here we go. Raw, back at it again. I thought maybe they were changing sort of the turning the page, but then they sink right back into old habits. So I think it's pretty safe to say on this opening segment of Raw, I would absolutely change it. It was something that I didn't like. It wasn't something that I'd give a thumbs up to, and I would do exactly what I thought was going to happen, and then just go in straight into the match because it would have made sense. In terms of the match itself, I personally kind of liked it. I thought it was an okay match, and I wanted the Viking Raiders to win and go on for the titles. I know a lot of people perhaps wanted RK Bro to win, but for me, I want RK Bro to have sort of don't want to have them in the title picture straight away. I want them to have sort of an undercurrent going on, build their relationship a little more, because look, they're still a new tag team, aren't they? They've only been around a few weeks.
Yeah.
And we'll get to it later in the show, but I feel like there's going to be a little bit of a story between them and the New Day, and I'm down for that. I think that would be good. It'll develop sort of the characters that Riddle and Orton are sort of developing, if you want, and see where they go, and then maybe have a title opportunity at SummerSlam. I know I've just waffled on quite a lot, but what was your sort of thoughts on the opening segment of Raw?
So I'm not really that negative on starting with the talking segment. I know a lot of people are. They feel it really drags and slows the show down, and I can see why someone would think that, but I don't personally mind starting. Sometimes they go on a bit long. Remember a few years ago during the quote authority era of Monday Night Raw, there was some 25-minute, 35-minute opening promos, and
oh god, yeah, don't remind
that's a little
me.
tedious. But I don't really have a problem with that. So I don't think I would have changed it. But I feel like the consensus is that you don't want to do it all the time. So yeah, just swapping them around, have the match, then have the promo would have worked. Obviously, it couldn't be the same promo, but
yeah,
you could do something like that. Viking Raiders winning, makes total sense. Keeps the RK Bros stuff building slowly because it's entertaining in the fact that they're not on the same page at the minute.
Yeah, exactly.
So, yeah, I'd kind of agree with. I'd agree with pretty much everything you said. Not always to kind of my personal negative opinions on something, but yeah, that would be a better.
Yeah, I'll tell you one thing I did love about the opening segment was when John Morrison came out with The Miz and he did his entrance, but let go of The Miz in the wheelchair, and then The Miz was rolling down in slow motion. That got me good. I did think that was pretty entertaining, so I'll give them their dues when they deserve it. So well done for that. That was entertaining.
A little bit of physical comedy can go a long way, and
yeah. I think that's sort of what you were talking about last week when you said they can be entertaining, but not overly silly, and it worked in that bit. Yeah. It's not throwing rotten tomatoes at each other. But look, that's segment 1 done. The second match on Raw. Can I just claim a victory here that Jackson Riker is in fact going to win Money in the Bank? Because he's the new biggest babyface on Monday Night Raw. He's got a haircut, he's looking clean, and they're pushing him. I told you last week.
Yeah, when I saw that, I was kind of like, oh, they're actually doing it. When is Money in the Bank? Is it
next month?
It is next month. They've changed all the pay-per-views around.
Yeah, it's the first pay-per-view they're doing with fans as well.
So, is there enough time to actually make him a babyface with a crowd? Probably.
I don't think the crowd are going to take to him unless they do something sort of drastic.
I don't, but there is enough time to fit
in.
The appearance change will help differentiate between the two. That's always a pretty common thing to do there. So, yeah, your prediction is looking more and more likely. I still don't think it's going to happen, but maybe that's just me hoping rather than me thinking that's what's going to happen.
Yeah, don't get me wrong, I'm really hoping it doesn't happen. I can't think of much worse than Jackson Riker winning the Money in the Bank. But look, I've just got a bad feeling. I've got an underlying feeling that it might. All the signs are showing that it's happening. In terms of what I'd change for this, it's hard to say because I don't really have much feeling towards this. The feud sort of came out of the blue, really. Last week when they split up in inverted commas, and then this week they kind of paid it off. The only thing I would say is, like, if you're sort of splitting people up, maybe prolong it to a pay-per-view undercard show. I don't know, but I don't know if it even warrants that. I would have just. It's just so hard to say because I just have literally no feelings whatsoever towards this act, to either Elias or Jackson Riker. So. I know that's not very insightful, but I don't know. What do you think?
Well, first of all, I think I got the easier of the 2 weeks of Monday Night Raw to book because this week the booking I feel wasn't the biggest problems with Raw. The actual kind of how the matches went. So based on how everything was set up last week with the WWE version, this week kind of made sense. It's not got any heat. There's no investment really from the fans in this story, but I think the best thing now is more to just not keep doing that.
Yeah, yeah, I'd agree.
Move him on to another feud. You can still have the odd Elias moment backstage with him. Like, Elias can be angry about it, but it should transition away from this now. Especially if you want him to be a big babyface, like feuding with Elias for a month isn't going to help.
No.
So weirdly, I think they had the right call on Raw. It's not a story I would have booked in its entirety, but this week I feel like they did the right thing with how it carries on. But I think feel like next week we're going to get the same match.
Yeah, probably, and most likely on the pre-show we're going to get the final blow-off if you want. But I think going into crowds and fans returning, they do need to make the split, and Elias just getting back doing what he does best, riling up the crowd, cheap heat, just like slamming on their sports teams or whatever. Remember like that segment he had with Kevin Owens when the crowd went nuclear when he riffed on one of their sports teams. Can't remember who it was off the top of my head. That's what he does best, man. That's what his act is, and he's really suffered without fans being in attendance.
Yeah, his promo stuff is normally a highlight because he can really draw up the crowd, and quite often he's paired with a top star just to not really job out, but his in-ring stuff is never the focus with Elias. Even though when he's given the opportunity, he's shown some good spots. It's normally about getting that heat and then having someone beat him to get the pop, and that is something WWE needs. So there's no issues with using him in that role because you kind of need that. So
yeah, completely agree. So the next part of Raw that I wanted to speak about was the contract signing between Bobby Lashley and Drew McIntyre. Essentially, what was revealed was that it is going to be in a Hell in a Cell, which I think everyone knew going into it. It's sort of the only feud that really warrants a Hell in a Cell match, and that's still at a push. And also, there's a stipulation where if Drew McIntyre loses, he can never challenge for the WWE title again for as long as Bobby Lashley holds the belts. I'll be honest, the result of this segment I liked. I like that if McIntyre loses, then he can't challenge for the belts again. And I also like that it's in a Hell in a Cell. I think both athletes could do a really good match inside the Hell in a Cell. So I'm looking forward to that. The segment itself, when Drew McIntyre went off speaking about a spider, I can't even remember what it was. I remember he talking about a spider, some sort of old Scottish tale. And I get it, it's sort of building into a Scottish warrior thing, but surely by now everyone knows that he's Scottish. Like, literally everybody knows that he's Scottish, and it was just sort of like, what the hell, this is so overwritten. Just get the two guys out there, get them face to face. Like, I would have even been tempted to do sort of like a weigh-in type thing, sort of as they do in boxing or something. Have the two guys go in there and go, right, so say Bobby Lashley weighs slightly more, Bobby Lashley's got the advantage, and go like that, and just have two beefy guys, just centre it around on the fight. Yeah,
the contract signing is so overdone now. It is becoming a little bit stale. There was a slight tweak to a classic. Instead of flipping the table, Drew McIntyre chopped it in half with a sword, which admittedly
what the hell was that all about?
I did like, but that didn't save the segment for me. It was just kind of that was a funny moment. There's going to be gifs of that, but yeah, a change to the formula of a contract signing is way overdue, and WWE do love to borrow from the legitimate fighting kind of areas. So yeah, taking like a boxing or MMA style weigh-in could work. And I feel like with Bobby Lashley obviously having MMA career as well, it would work pretty well. Although, if there is the rumoured Brock Lesnar fight, match, not a fight, is it? In the future, I feel like that would be the perfect opportunity to kind of introduce it, just to kind of compare them, things like that. But yeah, it would have worked here.
Yeah.
You mentioned about the stipulation. I always think a good stipulation can like really add to a match. But saying that Drew McIntyre can't challenge for the title as long as Bobby Lashley is champion is kind of a nothing stipulation in this feud. It doesn't really add anything because he's faced him 3 times. He will have, and if he loses again, he surely wouldn't have a 4th match, so he would stop anyway. And then in 2 months' time, there's a big SummerSlam pay-per-view, and it's reasonable to assume that Bobby Lashley may lose his title at SummerSlam to a big babyface because he's held it since WrestleMania. So that Drew McIntyre can then just have the match again in 3 months' time anyway. So
I see what you're saying. I do 100% see what you're saying. For me, it's just, I think it's more relief that we're not going to see this thing sort of be churned over once more.
Yeah, we won't see it at Money in the Bank. But then if Drew McIntyre does win, he can have to defend against Bobby Lashley at Money in the Bank. So.
Oh yeah, I didn't really think about that. I just had in my head that Lashley's going to retain, to be honest. But I didn't really think about the flip of that, if you want. We'll see what happens, I guess. Time will tell.
Time will tell.
Yeah, it will. It certainly will. The next little match that I wanted to talk about was Humberto Carrillo, if you didn't get that, I just said it in Spanish, versus Ricochet. And the winner would become the number 1 contender for Sheamus's United States Championship. Firstly,
WWE have me bugged. They heard me say it.
Yeah, I know, man, I know. Firstly, I just wanted to say I absolutely love Sheamus in his mask, in his protective mask. And there was actually a little bit on commentary, I can't remember who said it, but it was sort of a jibe towards Sheamus being very nasally when he was talking, and that it sort of it didn't make me laugh, but it brought a smirk to my face, which is more than WWE commentary usually does, so congratulations. The match itself, it was sort of a watered down version of what I feel these two could do if they were properly let go. But it did a job. The end was a Spanish fly off of the apron, and both men could not make the count of 10 to get back in the ring. So presumably, it's going to lead into a triple threat match with Sheamus at the pay-per-view, where both sort of, because there wasn't a conclusive number 1 contender, they're going to put both of them in, which I feel, with the way that they've booked it up until now, is actually probably the right result, to be fair to WWE. I don't know how I feel about the ending, to be honest.
I'm holding out on whether I'm positive or negative on it, because on the one hand it does seem like it's the classic number 1 contenders match, but neither of them won, so that means neither of them lost. But at the same time, like, Sheamus has a legitimate injury. They're making the best out of a bad situation here, but I don't know how long a reasonable recovery time for a broken nose is. There's, a week until Hell in a Cell?
Yep.
There's a chance that Sheamus isn't going to be ready for a match. And I think this could have been a potential setup to carry on the story past Hell in a Cell, because no one won. There's no number 1 contender, and I think they might use it for that. Obviously, we'll have to wait until Raw next week to kind of find that out. But that would make sense to me, because like I can't imagine wanting to get in a ring 2 weeks after you broke your nose and put on a match with someone, because you need some time to recuperate from injury. Like there are definitely worse injuries.
Oh yeah.
But like it's still an injury. Like you don't want to be doing that. Like
yeah, definitely. Well, you see in like football, people that get broken nose sort of wear these protective masks for weeks, if not months. But if there was anyone on the entire planet that would have a wrestling match 2 weeks after breaking their nose, it would be Sheamus, because he is a hard bastard. A hard bastard that you called out for the fight.
I don't know if they added anything to make it look worse, or if that is just completely natural. But the bruising on his face, all the yellow, is insane. Like, I think it's legit.
It 100% is legit.
But
he posted
it looks
on
so yellow.
Yeah, he posted on Instagram after it happened, and it was literally just flat. And on Raw this week, they showed sort of the slow-mo of when it happened last week, and you saw his nose sort of just cave in. And I think they described it as his face exploding, and yeah, that's 100% what happened.
Yeah.
Fair play to Sheamus, man. He is one hard bastard.
He finished the match.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. I don't know if I could do that. I honestly don't know if I could do that.
I got hit in the face with a football once, and I was out. It didn't even break my nose; it just hurt. I was like, nope, I'm done.
You little bitch. But
I was probably like 13, 14 at the time, but it's still a fair insult, I guess.
Little bitchy boy. Right. Anyway, let's move on. There was a segment between MVP and Kofi Kingston backstage, where MVP was saying, "I used to be before managing Bobby Lashley a Kofi fan, and like getting behind him in WrestleMania when it was Kofi Mania, blah blah blah, and I really enjoyed it. I thought it was really well done, but it made me think I really want to see Kofi Kingston versus Bobby Lashley at Hell in a Cell, and I wish he won last week because they could have done such an awesome story. It just made me think of what could have been. I don't know what you thought about it."
Yeah, it's one of those kind of things when it's like, are they just teasing us of what we could have had, or are they setting something up?
Yeah.
And if this is a setup for a SummerSlam match,
yeah, I'd be down for that.
I'm down. I'll be all for that. It's one of those weird times for Hell in a Cell of it's not a big pay-per-view.
No.
But there is a big pay-per-view coming, and there's a crowd, and it's kind of, I feel that WWE are just holding back at the minute for that, and obviously we don't want them to hold back because it's not entertaining TV. But you do understand kind of why they might be doing it. And yeah, it kind of it made me this segment it kind of gave me that appetite to want to see that match. I feel like it could be good. I feel like it could have been great if the Hurt Business hadn't been disbanded. Hurt Business versus New Day.
Yeah, that's true. That's very true.
But I'll settle for a Bobby versus Kofi at SummerSlam.
I'll tell you what, the Hurt Business splitting up, it just gets more baffling every week, doesn't it? Like what Cedric did this week. Jeff Hardy just coming out of nowhere and beating him. Apparently Cedric is now sort of public enemy number one for all the veterans in the locker room. It's just, like I say, it's just baffling. Why on earth they'd split up the Hurt Business? Like, I just don't understand.
It's not to get too off topic, but it is a classic thing that WWE have done time and time again, and so much recently, of splitting up a team without having a plan for either of them. Like, if you've got a plan for one of them, like they've done it so well in the past. Like they split up. The Rockers is the classic go-to. Shawn Michaels, Marty Jannetty. They had a plan for Shawn Michaels. They needed him to be a single star, and that worked. We got one of the best of all time. But so often there isn't a plan, and it's the cliche, who's going to be the Marty Jannetty? And at the minute it's both of them. And there's nothing against Marty Jannetty.
Well, I think it's an insult to Marty Jannetty, to be honest, to compare Cedric Alexander and Shelton Benjamin in their state to him.
But yeah, there's nothing against him as a performer, but how could you compete with Shawn Michaels? But using them, like, it is that kind of thing. Like at the minute, that no one's going anywhere. So why are you splitting them up?
Yeah, that's a discussion for another day, though. We could go down the right rabbit hole there. But we do know who the new Marty Jannetty and Shawn Michaels is going to be. Marty Jannetty, Elias, and Jackson Riker, baby. He's going to the top. Mr. WrestleMania. He's going to win that Money in the Bank briefcase and go on to SummerSlam. What a guy.
You know, if they pulled it off and he had the charisma and in-ring skill to compete at the same level like that, wouldn't care. Honestly,
man.
If he comes out at Hell in a Cell and puts on like a 5-star, I don't even know what the highest star rating anymore is in wrestling, but if he puts on a 5-star classic against someone, I'll be like, you know what? Give him everything. Push him to the moon. I don't care.
Oh man, let's come back down to earth, back down to reality, because I honestly don't think that's going to happen. Maybe I'll be proved wrong, and so be it. Good on you, Jackson Riker. But let's talk about an arrogance contest. What seems like an arrogance contest. Who can be the more obnoxious, arrogant person between Rhea Ripley and Charlotte Flair? Like, honestly, man, they're both insufferable. I can't stand them. I honestly can't stand them. Rhea Ripley's title reign has been an absolute train wreck, and Charlotte Flair has been not much better. This whole thing with Nikki Cross is just... it hurts my head. It honestly does hurt my head. And the way that the commentators speak about it as well, I know it shouldn't be sort of a surprise of how the commentators talk in WWE, but I was actually listening to it this week, and it was just annoying. Annoying is a blunt way to put it. But before I get into it, what did you think of the whole sort of angle between these people this week?
I don't know, like, it feels so stale. It feels like I've seen this like so much, but it's a relatively new feud. Obviously it picked up after they had their feud last year, but it feels like I've been watching Charlotte Flair versus Rhea Ripley for months.
Yeah.
And we haven't. We have been watching some other matches on repeat for months, but not really this. And I honestly don't know who it's meant to help. It doesn't help Charlotte, although Charlotte doesn't really need help. Her record speaks for itself. It didn't really help Rhea Ripley because she's not very likable in this story, and she's meant to be the face. Is she? I think.
Yeah, you don't know. That's the problem.
I think she's meant to be that kind of tweener, kind of. She's a badass, but she's a good guy, kind of.
It's not coming across that way whatsoever.
And it didn't really help Nikki. I said it last week. Like, they've turned her into a jobber.
There's one word that describes her. One word, and that I think is dork. She is a proper dork.
Yeah, it's such a weird story, and it's for the main women's title on Raw, but
I sort of wonder where it's going. Like, what's the end to this? Nikki Cross getting these victories on Rhea Ripley.
Does she get the title? Like, because I mean, if that's the ending, then fair enough.
Yeah,
but is that the ending?
I don't know. I don't think this current state of Nikki Cross is a credible title holder, let alone title challenger if you want.
But imagine, like, she wins the title, comes out on Raw, and she's all like being like dorky Nikki Cross, and then just her face changes, and it was all an act. She's been manipulating them. She's just like.
At this stage, I want crazy Nikki Cross back.
I mean, yeah, like, there is so many ways you could go. I don't think that's what they're doing. I don't know what they're doing, but
yeah, honestly,
it's a head scratcher.
Yeah, to say the least. I honestly have no idea, and to be honest, I don't want to spend too much longer on it because it's just absolute dog shit. To be fair.
I did find some of the tags funny. I kind of skimmed through the match a little bit, but there's Rhea Ripley like patting Charlotte on the head moment, which just kind of made me laugh. It was a bit silly, but
the chop was quite cool as well. the
You often
flare
get those kind of moments when you pair two people who are feuding as a tag team.
Yeah.
But it's normally something that you can kind of... There's normally a moment that you can look at and be like, that was kind of funny in a weird way. And I guess it had that, but yeah, it was a weird... Have they stated what match that's going to be at Hell in a Cell?
I don't know.
I know we're getting a match, but I don't think we've been told if it's just a singles match or what.
Yeah, I'm not sure, to be honest. I was just watching the match and had sort of an overwhelming sadness for all of them being involved in this crap. But particularly Asuka, she was just there, and she's sort of become, I was going to say third wheel, but she's the fourth wheel now. She's even behind Nikki Cross, and like, how can you misuse someone so bad as Asuka? She's literally one of the best in the world at what she does, and she's now sort of a spare piece in a storyline between these three. It's just absolutely insane.
I was a little disappointed when she came out that she wasn't like 6'5" and covered in Batista's tattoos, as she alluded to on Twitter. If anyone hasn't seen that, she tweeted a picture of her head photoshopped onto Batista's body with her ring gear, I think it had, saying like this. It said like "this is real" or something, and I don't know what that was about, but
it was funny. It was funny, and Batista liked it.
Yeah.
But right.
So I was a little disappointed that wasn't anything. I didn't think it would be, but I wish she'd just done his entrance taunt thing when he did the kind of, it's got all the fireworks going off as he's kind of waving his arms about. I can't describe it very well. If you watched wrestling when Batista's about, you know what I'm talking about. But
she could do it like Xavier Woods style. I imagine Asuka would be amazing doing it Xavier Woods style, going absolutely crazy on Batista's theme.
Yeah. Asuka needs to be spoilers for when we talk about who should change brands later. Asuka's the number one pick for me.
Yeah, she's on mine as well. She's absolutely on mine. Just escape. Let her escape. Yeah. Right. We've skirted around it long enough. Let's get to the main event. Let's get to this main event. It has had a huge reaction to what happened. Negatively, and then there's some Nancy Alexa Bliss fans that said, "Oh, she's the best actor in the world. She should win a Grammy for this sort of stuff." Blah blah blah. Anyway, what happened was it was Alexa's playground. Alexa was in the ring with Lily, and Shayna Bazler. It sort of cut to Shayna Bazler, and she was backstage with Nia Jax. Nia Jax went, "Oh, be careful with Alexa Bliss. You don't know what she's capable of." And Shayna went, "Oh, it's fine, I know what she's capable of, and it's just a stupid doll." And that's a theme that sort of went throughout this segment. Shayna came out to the ring. Alexa pretty much said, "Oh, apologise to Lily." Shayna laughed it off and said, "She's a doll, she's a doll." But it looked like she might have be apologising to Lily. She picks up Lily and says, "I'm sorry for what I'm about to do," or something along those lines. And then she stomps on Lily. And then all the spooky bollocks happens. Yay, our favourite, spooky bollocks. Shayna, the lights start going funny in the Thunderdome. A favourite trick of making all of the LED sort of panels where the crowd are sort of go funny. And then Shayna runs into the back. But where is everyone? There's no one there. And Corey Graves goes, "Where is everyone?" and makes it really obvious. She eventually runs into a room and sees Lily in the mirror, but when she turns around, Lily's not there. Smashes the mirror, and Lily's still there, and the show goes off air with Shayna Bazler screaming. Oh my gosh, I don't know what to say, and I haven't written anything about how to rebook it because I don't know. I honestly don't know what to say.
The only thing I would change in rebooking it is I wouldn't have it go on last.
Yeah.
But I am a big fan of spooky bullshit done right. And I honestly think, as weird and cheesy as this was, I'm fully on board for this, and I will defend this segment. So the world that you see in WWE, when you're meant to believe is real, they're really fighting. Everything is real, right? That is the disbelief you're meant to have when you're watching WWE. That they hate each other, that they really are beating each other up, and everything you see on TV is really happening. No camera tricks, no setup. If you stomped on a doll and all of that shit happened, you would freak the fuck out. And if you looked in your mirror and there was something behind you, like I'm on camera, so Sam can see it. If there was something here and I turned my head and it wasn't there, I'd leave the house.
Yeah.
So Shayna's reaction is completely what you'd expect. I don't care how tough you are. You're gonna act tough at first, and as soon as stuff like that starts happening, you are going to shit it and just freak out. So her reaction was completely expected. And we said last week that we've not been enjoying the Alexa Bliss character work, and it's because they haven't had the really out there segments, and they needed that. They needed to either go really out there or go something completely different. They were playing it too safe, and it made it shit. Because wrestling is at its best when it's fun, and I thought that was fun.
Yeah.
Not your main event segment, but I also don't know how you follow that. But I would defend that, because as weird and as cringy as it was fun.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
That's all I can say on that one. Is I can see why people would hate it, because a lot of wrestling fans want wrestling to be really serious, and they want people to have feuds about who's the best wrestler. And like Shayna Bazler is a really tough wrestler and should be feuding with people about who's the best wrestler. There isn't a lot of space for that at the minute, because most of the other top stars are involved in other feuds that you got to get through. So if you've got to do this, then make it really fun, and I feel that's what they did. I haven't looked at other people's opinions too much on it, because I saw a lot of negativity and was like, I liked it, but I didn't want my opinion to be swayed before I came on here, because I thought you were going to hate it. So I enjoyed it. What did you think? What's your?
I think a lot of the hate around this segment was down to the fact that yes, it was the main event, which 100% it shouldn't have been, and that Shayna Bazler is involved in it, which is sort of my negative views on there, because I don't think Shayna Bazler should be anywhere near this. Absolutely. Like, get her away from it. But objectively, as a segment, I went in and I had listened to some podcasts and I'd read some stuff and heard a lot of negative stuff about it. But I found myself, I don't want to say enjoy it, but I didn't hate it, and I was laughing at it because it was funny. It was funny. I know it wasn't maybe meant to be funny, but. Look, I guess I did enjoy it. Yeah, I guess I did enjoy it, and I didn't hate it completely. It, like you say, they needed to go big, and they did.
Yeah, I saw someone tweet. One of the few things I did see was someone say, "Why is Shayna Bazler running away from a doll?" And the answer is because that doll has magic powers.
Yeah.
And they build up to Shayna being actually freaked out.
Yeah.
She leaves the ring, she's made a dramatic stomps on the door and leaves the ring, and then fireballs start being shot at the ramp, and she's like, okay, I need to get away from literal fire, because of course you do. So right, I'm getting out of here. I've seen what's happened before. I'm just gonna go, and then stuff starts falling on her, and then in the middle, it builds up slowly through this segment of why Shayna should be scared, and I think. You say Shayna should be as far away from this and she should be in big championship matches, and having title reigns. But I think her being that legit, badass, like actual fighter person adds legitimacy to this story. It would feel so much more of a throwaway joke if it was another wrestler. If it was Nia Jax, for example, she's done the kind of silly segments, so her aura doesn't help this segment. But because Shayna is that tough son of a bitch kind of character, and possibly like in real life as well, because she was in MMA, she can legit fight. So yeah, I feel it adds legitimacy to it and gives it something extra. And it all depends how the feud ends, what that eventual match is like. We said it so much during the Fiend Randy Orton stuff for WrestleMania, and ultimately that ended bad.
Yeah.
But if it had ended well, you'd look back on it so much better. If Shayna gets the win, we might be looking at this as like a positive. Like, this is some of the hurdles she had to go through to get to the main event, back to the main event. And yeah, it's a bit wacky, but this is WWE. We've seen people buried in cement, and like Vince blew himself up and came back and said, "Oh, it was all a test to see how people would like me." I mean, there was other circumstances there, but there's so much ridiculous stuff in WWE's past. This isn't that bad of a segment because at least it made sense. For me, that's where like segments in WWE are ruined when either they don't make any sense or they go try to be funny and the humour isn't.
Yeah.
And that's very often. This wasn't either of those things for me. So
that's an interesting way to put it, and I don't think I can really add much more to it, to be honest. It's made me think a different way about it, and yeah, maybe I'm more positive on it. So well done. It's a good way. I am looking forward to seeing this sort of portrayed in front of fans, though. I'm really looking forward to that. I don't know how it would go down, to be honest, but we'll find out soon enough.
One thing I'd just like to mention about is one of the greatest character worker, and I know he wasn't always the biggest fan of him, The Undertaker, had a way weirder moment, and I just want to remind people of the Teddy Long limo segment. And if you don't remember what that is, if you wasn't watching SmackDown at that point, there was a story that involved The Undertaker having some...
Undertaker involved in an Undertaker story? No way.
No, it involved him having some issues with Teddy Long on a particular episode of SmackDown. Can't remember the specifics, it's been quite a while. Teddy Long is trying to flee from The Undertaker. He gets into a limo and he's like driver, get me out of here. And the partition comes down. The Undertaker's there. He turns round. I think he says, like, "Buckle up, Teddy," and like smoke starts to fill the limo. Teddy Long like overreacts because it kind of called for that, and that was the segment. Like, WWE has a history of weird segments, and The Undertaker again is one of the best of all time. So
I think we've talked a fair bit about Monday Night Raw this week. I think next week we'll talk a little bit more about SmackDown. It's just at time of recording, it's currently Thursday, so it's before SmackDown. And I know we haven't talked about it necessarily over the last couple of weeks, but that's mainly because we wanted to focus on Raw and the problems that it had, and maybe see if we could potentially make it a little bit better. We've explored it a little bit. But a big news story this week was WWE announced that there is going to be another draft. Whenever there's a problem, you know what's going to fix it? It's a draft. So I think necessarily that the draft could actually fix some of the problems that specifically Raw has this year. So we're going to talk a little bit about the draft, and we've both picked 5 WWE wrestlers that we think should switch between the red and blue brands. Maybe to help the show, as in Raw. I don't think SmackDown really needs much saving. Maybe they're sort of a bit stale and need to switch. So I think we should start off and start with our first pick, and we'll explain a little bit as to why we picked them. So my first pick for Monday Night Raw from SmackDown would be Sami Zayn. And my logic behind Sami Zayn going over there is that on SmackDown currently, he's just feuding with Kevin Owens. And whenever Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens has feuded in the last little while, usually means they haven't got a lot planned for either of the two of them. Also, Raw is a 3-hour show and has a lot longer time for promos. And if there's one thing that Sami Zayn is good at, is making, perhaps in the wrong hands, a boring long promo very entertaining. So I think Sami Zayn going over to Raw would be perfect. It'd solve some issues by not killing some time, but filling some time with some entertaining content that might well be a bit boring in other people's hands. And he's a good wrestler.
Yeah. Is there a particular feud you would push him into? Because it's after SummerSlam, like you can pretty much do whatever you want. As an idea, is there anyone you'd like to see Sami Zayn feud with?
I haven't really thought about it, to be honest, but you could easily put him in the United States title picture with even if Sheamus, if it is currently, or you could put him with anyone though, couldn't you?
Any of the three currently involved would have a good story. Could have a good story with Sami Zayn, I'll say. Should have a good story with Sami Zayn, but I think that would be one that makes sense. Wasn't sure exactly how it is, but others have already mentioned it. I'll go with Asuka going over to SmackDown. Now, what normally happens in this case is you'll have one person go one way, one person go the other. So if they have to have a woman go from SmackDown to Raw, I'll probably go at the minute for either Carmella or Bayley.
Okay.
Now, Asuka on SmackDown, that's great for her because she can go up against the likes of Sasha Banks and Bianca Belair, which are some matches that we have seen Sasha Banks, Asuka in the past, but those are some feuds that could be given some good treatment over on SmackDown, and it's another person, a new person for Bianca Belair, who is kind of in need of a new feud after Bayley, which also then helps SmackDown. The other way, I was trying to think what the Raw women's scene needs, and I don't really know. Like, it's such a weird scene at the minute. So realistically, I wouldn't have anyone go back, especially as Becky Lynch might be returning soon.
Well, yeah. Do you know what? I'll just
impact.
interrupt there because I have actually picked Becky Lynch to go to Raw, and I know she's not necessarily on SmackDown, but I feel like when she does come back, Raw would benefit the most from that.
Yeah. But yeah, my first pick is for Asuka to go to SmackDown.
Okay.
If Bianca Belair is still champion after SummerSlam, then put her straight into a feud against Bianca Belair. Actually, again, it doesn't really matter who's champion at that point. Put them straight into a championship feud against Asuka.
Yeah.
Because as bad as she's been booked on Raw, she has that legitimate main eventer status. I feel that you can just a couple of weeks of making her look strong, and she is back looking as your best.
Yeah.
So
cool. I completely agree with that pick. Just going over to my first pick for SmackDown, and that would be Keith Lee. Drafted from Raw over to SmackDown. He's just, I don't know what's going on behind the scenes. I don't know if there's something happened with Keith Lee, but it's just not being used whatsoever on the show. And when he was used, he wasn't in sort of anything really inspiring that took your imagination. I feel like he could fit in to the mid card on SmackDown very well. There's a lot of people over there that he could work with. Even dare I say a Baron Corbin. I'm sure he could get a good match out of them. or anyone. He could even go sort of towards the title picture. You could build him up, and he'd be a good sort of opponent on a B pay-per-view for Roman Reigns. So I feel like there's just so many more opportunities for Keith Lee on SmackDown than there is Raw. So that's my pick.
Yeah. So I've got to pick someone to go to Raw, and as we've been really talking it down for the last couple of weeks, sending someone to Raw feels like such a bad idea. But my pick is going to depend heavily on where the story goes between now and SummerSlam. But I'm going to say Jey Uso to Raw. There's a lot of different ways you could spin this, from like him losing a SummerSlam match and Roman like kicking him out, to Roman sending him to Raw to like kind of like, I've got SmackDown, you go to Raw, make Raw part of. There's a few different ways, but I like the idea of experiencing the main event Uso character away from Roman Reigns. You take Roman away from him, what does that character do? And I feel like something interesting you could explore on Monday Night Raw, even if it's only short term.
Yeah. Just
for a few months, and then you could have him go back, however the story develops. But that's something I would do. I was thinking Jimmy, but I think there's more story to tell with Jimmy on SmackDown without Jey. And as weird as it would be to split them up, I feel like in a short term it could be really beneficial for the kind of stories they've been telling. But it all depends on how it's booked at SummerSlam. But that's kind of what I would want to do for a Raw superstar.
That'd be an interesting dynamic. I'm not completely against that. Going on to my next pick for Raw, might surprise you a little bit, but I've got Big E going over to Raw. I don't necessarily want him to go back to the New Day. They can have interactions, but I don't want them to become a trio again and be seen on screen sort of as a team. I feel at this stage, I don't think Big E is going to be the challenger for Roman Reigns at SummerSlam, like most of us thought, and be the one that's going to dethrone him, unless something drastic happens between now and then. And I have a vision of Bobby Lashley versus Big E for the title, and it excites me. So it's a dynamic that I don't think we've ever seen before, and Raw most definitely is the B show now to SmackDown. SmackDown is absolutely the flagship in terms of money and content that it gets out. I think that it would be the perfect place to sort of hone Big E into becoming a sort of main eventer, top of the card talent, get him up there, and you could easily see him becoming the champion of Raw. And then maybe look to get him back on SmackDown once he's become validated even more.
Yeah, it's what I was thinking about. It ultimately didn't make my list, but now you've said it, I will go with my idea for the Big E to Raw.
The Big E?
No, the Big E to Raw.
That's just the way it's said. The Big E to Raw.
Because obviously, if every member of the New Day is back on the same brand, eventually they're going to just get put back together. That is what's going to happen. So my idea, Big E to Raw, there's like an early draft.
Yeah.
Have a kind of backstage segment kind of thing with the New Day being like, oh yeah, we're all back together. Later on in the night, or later on in the draft, however it works, the New Day to SmackDown. And that's my pick.
Okay.
The New Day go over to SmackDown. Yeah. We'll have to see how the Kofi Kingston feud story plays out. I don't think we're going to get Kofi Mania 2 or Kofi Slam. I don't know what it is.
Kofi King Slam.
I feel that story's not actually going to develop to it. I don't think he would get that on SmackDown either, but
No.
I wouldn't want to take that away from him if they are going down that route. So if it looks like that's going to happen, obviously I wouldn't want this, but I think it would benefit them of both parties there, of like Big E and Xavier Woods and Kofi Kingston, to not be on the same brand continuing, because I think they're doing well with their own separate things instead of all being together at the minute, and I would want to keep them apart. So if Big E's going one way, the other two go the other. The tag division over on SmackDown is it as strong as Raw? Neither of them are particularly strong. There's some new matchups and some old classics. The New Day versus the Mysterios, that would be kind of cool. So there's a lot you can do, and it's one that kind of makes sense to me. So yeah, that's my pick.
Cool. Right, my next pick to be drafted to SmackDown is Drew McIntyre, and mainly for the reasons we've discussed in the podcast really earlier on. He just seems stale on Raw now, and if he loses to Bobby Lashley, I don't really see another direction for him to be in on Raw other than being in the main event picture. There's no one there that sort of stands out as a feud that I'd want to see. Whereas if you there you go, football talk. If you drafted him over to SmackDown, he could be a credible contender against Roman. I wouldn't want to see him beat Roman, but like there's history there with the Survivor Series match from last year, and he's a big bloke. Like, you could see him as a credible contender. But even if not, and you just put him in not mid card, sort of upper mid card, there's people like Seth Rollins, Cesaro, Kevin Owens, people like that you'd love to see him in a feud with. And even the mid card title, you could see him going for. So that's my logic behind getting Drew McIntyre over to SmackDown.
Okay. It's not when I was thinking of my I think it's my fourth one is going over to SmackDown, and it's not technically coming from Raw, although I think he is listed as a Raw superstar on WWE's page.
Yeah.
Brock Lesnar.
Okay.
There's whispers of his return, and as much as we've seen it so many times, and a lot of people probably don't want to see it again, heel Roman versus Brock Lesnar has a certain appeal to it.
Yeah.
Especially with Paul Heyman being such a part of both of those characters. I want to see how that plays out. Now, obviously, Brock doesn't appear very often on TV, so I feel like for that feud to work, he would have to make the appearances. But when he's determined and when he wants to be involved, Brock is entertaining and is really good for WWE. When he phones it in a bit, you kind of like, why are they bothering? Because the fans aren't interested. Brock's not interested. Why are we doing this? But when he is, I reckon it's good. And if they're going to continue to build this heel Roman as being the most legitimate wrestler, him winning, I know he's already won before, but him winning over Brock Lesnar is a big step on that. So,
yeah,
and I don't see him fitting in on Raw at the minute either. So.
No, that's definitely a sort of dynamic that I'd like to see. Right, I'm just going to whip through my final four picks, 2 for SmackDown, 2 for Raw, mainly because they're sort of pretty much the same logic behind them. So my 2 draft picks for Raw would be Kevin Owens, because I don't see a lot of progression for him on SmackDown, and I feel like it could bolster that Raw mid card, maybe even upper card, quite well. There's a ceiling. He's lost to Roman Reigns now, so what else is he going to do? And similar logic is Bayley. She is also presumably going to lose to Bianca Belair at the weekend, and she just seems like she hasn't really got a direction. She's another really good talker, so can fill a good amount of time on Raw and make it entertaining. So I'd get her over to Raw. And my final 2 picks for SmackDown would be Ricochet. Again, I don't know, it seems like I've said this for every single one, but he's just he's there. He's doing absolutely nothing. I know he's in the US title picture at the minute, but like it's just so sort of ineffectual. He's just there, being Ricochet, but not being Ricochet. Get him over to SmackDown, get him some fresh matches, and he could do a world of good. And my final pick for SmackDown is Alexa Bliss. I really hope that they somehow get rid of this spooky bollocks character with her, whether it's sort of a cinematic match at SummerSlam between The Fiend and Alexa, and she manages to break the spell. I just want her to become Alexa Bliss, the wrestler, a really, really good wrestler, and her to slot in to SmackDown's Women's Division. That's all I want, her to have some separation from this character and The Fiend, and just become Alexa Bliss again.
Okay, yeah. I don't know how that leaves the brands if you do all of them.
Yeah.
But I can't really fault your logic on any of them. Yeah. My last 2 they're completely different ones that haven't been mentioned, but heading over to Raw is Seth Rollins.
Okay.
Based on the current SmackDown roster, I feel he has a ceiling.
Yeah.
But I don't think he does on Raw. The new kind of post Messiah, I don't know what he is now, or what Rollins could go all the way to champion on Raw. You took Drew McIntyre off, but in my picks, Drew McIntyre is still on Raw. If he became champion, Seth Rollins could be a great feud for him. So there's something that can be done there. I don't know quite how he works with Bobby Lashley, but again, with a sort of slight tweak to their characters to kind of make them more like you've actually got someone to root for, because they are both heels. He could work well there as well. And my last one, I don't have a brand for them to go to, because it's another one that's been talked about a lot, but I do want to see them come back. I think they might be coming back for SummerSlam, so this might be too early, but
Eva Marie.
I just want to.
I'm joking.
She's coming back next week.
Oh yeah.
I don't know what match you go for or what feud. It doesn't really matter, but John Cena, because that pop will be huge. I don't think there's a bigger pop that WWE can achieve at the minute.
The Rock.
And yes and no. I don't think they can get The Rock at the minute. He's been busy. Yeah. John Cena, I think, is meant to be coming back, so I think that is the biggest achievable pop at the minute. He's always been such a WWE guy, and like I said, I don't know who you feud him with. I don't even know how you bring him back after that Firefly Funhouse match. We've got to see it. He's good for at least another run, and I've seen some videos online about how to book a John Cena return that included him breaking Ric Flair's record. So there's always that option. I don't think WWE will do it. I don't think John Cena wants to do it, but there's so much you can achieve, even if it's just a short 6-month run from SummerSlam to WrestleMania.
Yeah,
it could do a world of good. So I'd draft him back if they can get him.
Well, if rumours are to be believed, he might be coming back for SummerSlam for a match with Roman Reigns. WWE want to make SummerSlam, in inverted commas, the WrestleMania in this year. Have it as the biggest event. They've got it in the new Las Vegas, the American football team stadium over there, which is massive and state of the art. So it's going to be a spectacular event, and John Cena's sort of barring The Rock and Stone Cold as big as you get in terms of WWE names. So it'll be interesting to see.
I don't think you can draft The Rock back, because I don't think anyone's going to believe he's actually going to be on weekly TV. Like,
no, definitely not. Well, there we have it, folks. I think that is the podcast for this week. Again, a little bit different, but thoroughly enjoyable for me, and I think I speak for Damien too. Thank you all for listening week in and week out to this podcast, and to us sort of droning along and moaning and stuff about wrestling. Two grown men talking about wrestling. But it's fun. It's something to do. So thank you all for listening. Damien will be with us in a minute for the socials, and I'll speak to you next week.
thank you everyone for listening. If you would like to keep updated with new content from us, as well as supporting us a little bit with this podcast, you can check us out on Facebook at The Figure Forecast, on Twitter at Figure4UK, and at YouTube by searching The Figure Forecast. We look forward to recording our next episode for you.